Hello and welcome to the very first fourth episode of the Bourgeois Gentleman's Reading Room. I'm Ray, and as always, behind the camera is everyone's favorite ninja marsupial, Shaolin Koala Stafford. It's me! Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, black people and women, and also comics, and how they pertain to comics. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. Just got back, jet setting, as Shaolin would say, traveling the world, caught a little cold, so I'm a little nasally, forgive me. It's, nothing serious, nothing stops me from drinking and bringing you news about comics. Which is actually pretty funny because I'm not bringing you any news at all. I guess it's, I'm a little behind the curve, so we'll jump right in. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Marvel announced that they were going to switch out Thor. They were going to change Thor to a woman, and this was going to be a permanent change. Also, a little later, they followed that by saying that Captain America was going to be changing. He was now going to be black. I don't spend a great deal of time on message boards, so I don't know a lot of reaction to it. I know that there have been some articles written on it, just talking about the effects of the change. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in because these changes deal with a lot of broader issues in comics, and the biggest issue I have with it is we all know that this isn't permanent. Steve Rogers isn't dying. He already died once. Remember that? It didn't last. We had Bucky, and he was a great Captain America. And then Steve Rogers took it back, and they killed Bucky, and then brought Bucky back. Also, we've had different Thors before, but now that Marvel's owned by Disney, now that Marvel is making a lot of money off of movies, let's be honest, when the next Avengers comes out, when the next Captain America comes out, when the next Thor comes out, it'll be regular old manly Thor, and it'll be regular good old corn-fed white boy Steve Rogers who's holding up the shield. I have no real problem with this. I also have no problem with them changing it back. I understand it's a lot easier and a lot less confusing to market these books and get that synergy, so to speak, get that cross-platform selling if you have the same face there. I get it. It's the same reason that they stopped having Otto Octavius be, Spider-Man when The Amazing Spider-Man came out. It just makes it easier to suck in new readers without having to have any backstory or anything like that. Explaining why Spider-Man is a deranged, supervillain, or trying to explain why, hey, the Thor in the movie that I liked, why's he got titties now? So I get that. My problem is that it's sort of marketed as this way of being progressive and this way of advancing race relations. Wouldn't it be great if we had a major black superhero, a black Captain America? Wouldn't it be great if we had a woman Thor, or a Thor-like character who was that powerful, but who's a woman? And yeah, it would be great if we had that. But you kind of defeat the cause, so to speak, by having it just be a temporary thing and something that we all know is, well, temporary. Wouldn't it be better, and bear with me for a moment, try and think for a minute of 3, 4, 5 black superheroes. Like important, major superhero players. Truth be told, you probably can't. If you do, you're probably going to come up with the Black Panther, Luke Cage, and maybe Storm. And those are probably, especially speaking on the Marvel Universe, your primary major characters who are really important and integral to the Marvel Universe. And the great thing about that is the Black Panther in particular, and even Luke Cage, these are 2 characters who were created during the blaxploitation era, who were created strictly because it's like, we need more black people. Let's give them a fro and a silk shirt. Yeah. Oh man, I hear blacks love militant. They got this group called the Black Panthers. Let's name them the Black Panther. Yeah, right on. Ngawa. But they kept writing them and they kept developing them. And Black Panther now he's part of the Illuminati. He's a genius. He runs a nation. Everyone fears him. He's important. So it's okay to have characters, and you're better served by actually developing characters, standalone characters, and making heroes who, this guy's just black. Yes, it took Luke Cage a long time to develop as a character. It took a bald, short, fat Jewish guy to develop Luke Cage into a real viable character. But Luke Cage is now a viable character. I mean, he's as much an Avenger as Captain America, as Tony Stark. He's led the Avengers. So develop these characters to that point, and this is probably the most important one, is Storm, because she's black and she's a woman. If you've never read an issue of Uncanny X-Men, I highly recommend issue 201. Not because it's the first appearance of Cable as a baby. It's because it's Cyclops versus Storm for leadership of the X-Men. And Storm no longer has any powers, and Cyclops is done being married and being a house dad. He wants his leadership back. And he goes back, he helps them out on some mission, and he says, hey, I'm going to take it back, I deserve it. And one of the things he sort of insinuates is, one, you're a woman, and two, you've got no powers. So, why don't you step back? Storm proceeds to then beat him in a battle in the Danger Room. It is a great issue. It is probably one of the most empowering issues you're ever going to find for a woman. And if you're a minority of any kind, it's definitely an empowering issue for you. I mean, here is, at the time, X-Men was steadily climbing up the charts in the Marvel Universe. X-Men was quickly becoming one of their bigger titles. And let's be honest, here's this black chick who's about to lead them, who just kicked corn-fed white boys' ass. This is awesome. If she can do it, I'm pretty sure I can do it. That's sort of what you were left feeling. And again, I go back to, this is just an organically developed character. And there's always going to be people who say, oh, but wait, Miss Marvel changed her name to Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers existed. Carol Danvers' powers existed. Changing her name to Captain Marvel sort of just, it just seemed right. There was no big deal in the name change. And Captain Marvel wasn't Captain America. And let's face it, Marvel, or however you pronounce it, also doesn't have movies, that are ultimately going to lead to Carol Danvers giving up that moniker in 6 months or a year. And some people are going to point to, well, Nick Fury in the Ultimate Universe was black, and that's the one they use in the Marvel Universe. As important as Nick Fury is, and believe me, he's an integral part, he's always been an integral part of the Marvel Universe. The truth of the matter is, he's not really all that important. Pardon me. He's really not that big of a deal. When was the last time you really thought about Nick Fury? He's currently in Original Sin, which is a really good series. Hope you guys are reading it. He really is. He's an integral part. He's a big player in that. And even now, he's still not that big of a deal. Changing him to black doesn't mean anything. It doesn't affect anything. To some extent, it's like having the Incredible Hulk be someone who's not Bruce Banner. It just doesn't jibe well. It just doesn't fit. And you're willing to deal with that if this change is permanent and we're gonna grow this character. It's great if Captain America is going to be black. It's great for the cause. It's great for empowerment. It's great for developing it. It's great for creating new characters. As far as, showing people a sense of diversity. It's all great for those things if it's a permanent change. But again, given the billions that they make off of movies, we know this isn't going to happen. And when putting just the slightest modicum of effort into developing characters, i.e. Storm, i.e. the Black Panther, i.e. Luke Cage, three characters who very easily could have fallen by the wayside. I mean, Storm's an African goddess who ran around naked for a long time. She could have just been TNA. She could have just been there to be hot black chick. Let's face it, we all know Italian men love a little dark areola. She could have been there for that, and served that purpose. But no, she was developed into this strong leader. Someone you would want your kids to read about. Black Panther very easily could have been, I mean, his name is Black Panther, and he was created in the 60s at the height of the militant black organization called the Black Panthers. Man, if that's not blaxploitation, and if that's not a character itching to just be cut out, I don't know what is. And I mean, again, Luke Cage, you wore a yellow silk shirt. Really? And a tiara. Come on. It's very easy to have any one of those characters fall to the wayside. And there are black characters in DC. They created Jon Stewart, and some people will point to him as, well, you see, that change worked. One, Jon Stewart, for the most part, has always stayed Green Lantern. I know there have been some times when he wasn't. I forget the name of the like Warbirds or Firebirds, or I can't remember what else he became, but it was some organization that was similar to the Green Lanterns. But the thing with Jon Stewart, and in him being a black guy in the DC universe, and him taking over the mantle of Green Lantern, is Green Lantern, as much as we sort of recognize him as Hal Jordan, Green Lantern isn't Hal Jordan. The Green Lantern is a core. The Green Lantern are aliens and squirrels and a giant planet. Green Lanterns can literally be anyone, and as soon as they make a movie, the great thing about that is, while I may not introduce Jon Stewart in the first movie, I can always introduce him and have him fight side by side with Hal Jordan. I don't need him to be the one true one, and I know he's not going to get bumped from the book when they make a Green Lantern movie, and hopefully they'll eventually make one that'll erase that Ryan Reynolds dreck. That Jason Aaron, this is not temporary. She is the new Thor. Sorry, I actually read, because Shaolin wrote me a lovely note. Her Jason Aaron, she is the new Thor, and I get it. She is the new Thor. I get it. Just like Black Captain America's new Captain America. He's Captain America. He's gonna be until next year's Avengers, and Thor Odinson's gonna be back. To sort of put a bow on it, and because this is a topic that drifts into a lot of different realms, and we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to sip a little bit more of this Maker's Mark and come back and sort of get into those tangents. But to sort of put a bow on it, if it's not going to be permanent, you're better served creating real characters and developing those real characters. And even if that means it has to be a backup character in a book, even if it means they have to grow. Luke Cage didn't become important until he sort of grew out of New Avengers. People started to love him, and he was, for the most part, a big character who slowly grew in New Avengers. Now he's Luke Cage. Now he's got a television show coming. Now he's going to be part of a series that's going to lead into another series. There's something to be said for that. Jon Stewart grew organically out of the Green Lantern Corps. Again, Black Panther, if I'm not mistaken, he was sort of in like a Marvel premiere series or something like that. He might have debuted in the Avengers, but again, another character who was allowed to develop. I'm not saying we need women to get smacked in the face with women. I'm not saying we need to get smacked in the face and just release titles full of women. You're not really served very well for that. Black Widow is a prime example for women, in that she has been a character who's never really been developed. She's had a couple of series here and there, a couple of limited series. They always sort of failed. But we finally started giving her some time and developing her in Avengers, and guess what? Now she's got a pretty successful series on her hand, and she's a pretty important character who's got movies going, or at least talk of people saying, hey, maybe she should get a movie. And you're better served by developing these characters organically than sort of forcing them into situations. You're better served having it, making a commitment to creating these characters and having them develop than you are for beating your constituency over the head with, you know, hey, he's black! Hey, look, titties! Nothing ever wins that way. But that's my time for now, and we're gonna take a quick break. Again, I'm gonna sip on this Maker's Mark, and Shaolin's gonna stop yelling at me, and we'll be right back.